Hello, Be Awesome at Facility Management Podcast listeners and viewers. It's another episode going off seamlessly on time at the 3:30 hour Eastern Standard. I'm one of your hosts, Joshua Peach, and I am great to see Mr. Paul Anastasi. Looks like he's at home with drawings on the windows.
Grandkids' drawings behind me. Yeah, that's how you know.
Grandkids' drawings. And this is the second out of the last three episodes where I am outnumbered. It is two Pauls against one Peach. This guest is just an awesome person. We're going to learn a lot about him in the great state of Texas, where they do it bigger, and we're going to hear a whole lot about the bigger things that go on down there. Friend of 15 years and operations director at Garland ISD in Garland, Texas, the 13th largest school district, Mr. Paul Gonzales. Welcome, my friend. Thanks for giving us some of your time.
Thank you. Appreciate y'all having me on your podcast, and happy to be here. So let's get started. What you want to know?
Well, let's start at the beginning. You know you've got a very important role. I think every role in operations is important, but you're leading a team of roughly 500. That doesn't just happen overnight, and I think you've been around for a while. So, tell us how you got started in this field, and then, kind of let's walk through where you are today.
So when I was in high school, I was really intrigued in the trades. Wanted to learn about air conditioning and HVAC systems. During high school, took a summer job working in the hospitality industry. 16 years old, basically removing wall unit air conditioners and the motor in. Pulling them out, washing coils. Learned a lot about building maintenance in the motel, the old motel where you drive into the front of the motel and check into your room. And back in the 80s, pretty much learned a little bit there. And then when I graduated from high school, I went ahead and enrolled at St. Philip's College there in San Antonio for HVAC, and was working still at the for the hospitality industry back then, and continued that for like the first 6 years right out of high school. Got my HVAC certifications and my EPA licensing and so forth. And then in the early 90s, decided that I wanted to do something a little different, and went to go work for the the University of Texas systems. Worked at several universities, learned a lot about higher education and how that physical plant, in the universities, it's called physical plant.
Yeah.
They do things really, really standardized, and learn so much from working in that field. One of the cool things about working in the higher education arena was coming through the trades. They had programs where you would work with, for one or 2 months, you'd work with different trades. Coming up to the general maintenance program, you would work for the plumbers for a couple of months. You'd work for the HVAC for a couple of months, electricians, carpentry. I mean, I really learned so much going through their program with the UT system. And when I pretty much was doing general maintenance work for them, we did it all. We touched different areas, but we did it all. Of course, we had licensed masters and so forth overseeing a lot of the work, but learned so much in my early 20s. And then one day, the director of physical plant approached me and asked me what did I want to do with my career, what were my career goals, where did I see myself 10, 15 years. So he kind of laid out a growth plan for me for my career with the university. And I got into supervision, a lot of training on leadership, a lot of training on the different process and procedures for the University of Texas. and learned so much with them. That was in San Antonio. All this took place in San Antonio, Texas. Then all of a sudden went to a conference and got to meet some people from the DFW, from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And before you knew it, I was working for the University of Texas here in the DFW area, and continued my career for a few more years. Now, by then, I was with the University of Texas for a little over 10 years. Then all of a sudden, I saw a position that I really was intrigued and really wanted to pursue with the in the K-12 industry, and that was with the Dallas Independent School District, second largest district, the second largest district in the United States. Excuse me, second largest district in Texas, and came in as a manager. Was the manager there for a few years in one part of Dallas, and then moved up into a director role for about 5 to 6 years as a director of maintenance at the Dallas Independent School District, and then got the opportunity to become the executive director, and was involved with not only with maintenance but also involved with two $2 billion bond programs, large bond programs, replacing schools, renovating schools. I mean, we did a lot of work over that tenure there. I was there for 13 years at Dallas. And these last 8 years, I've been probably at the best district that I can think of in Texas. I'm really enjoying my job here. Great atmosphere. I'm here at Garland ISD here in Garland, Texas, and it's a great place to work, great people to work with. And we've just here as the executive director of the facilities and maintenance, we've just completed about a $455 million bond program, and we're ready to kick off another bond program here in the next year. So that's pretty much in a nutshell, my history in the industry. So I've done everything from turning wrenches to supervising the boots on the ground, and then now working with the cabinet and the administration and the board here in Garland for the district.
What's the what was the Dallas student count? Because you're the 13th largest with 55,000. I wonder what the difference is between second and 13th.
Dallas ISD at that time had about 155,000 students.
Wow.
That's amazing.
And,
wow.
155,000 students, and we had probably close to 300 facilities, about 250 school facilities, and then the other 50 were support facilities, stadiums, and auxiliary buildings, and so forth. And that there was 1,200 strong in the department. We had 1,200 employees in the maintenance and facilities department.
Well, and we'll put this into perspective, because I did make a comment, I think, on one of our previous podcasts about the size differential and landmass between Alaska and Texas, because Alaska's got twice the landmass, but Dallas School District by itself has 18,000 more students than the entire state of Alaska. The entire state of Alaska's got 132,000 kids, and has more students than the state of Rhode Island by 12,000, because they got 143,000 kids. One school district in the state, and you had a wow. That's so
it was overwhelming.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, I've knew you through most of your Dallas time. I've known you through all of your Garland time. You are like calm, cool, and collected. I never see you sweat. So, how I mean, I just can't imagine. I can't imagine the stress that I would feel in a 5,000 student district. Never mind 155,000. I know a lot of it has to do with the team, because you build great teams. But what's the secret there that you seem to keep your cool at all times here?
I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head. It's about building the team that you surround yourself that can support you, and then really getting the administration to understand exactly what we're facing with the conditions of your facilities, and educating um, the administration and the board of what you're facing in your district, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, you got to let them know exactly, what the district is facing, and how our students are being impacted in the classroom. Most important thing is we want to make sure that our students are not impacted on a daily basis because we have a maintenance issue or a custodial issue, or the facility wasn't designed to support that program. So, um, but a lot of to deal with my stress and to deal with a lot of the pressure. Um, I live out in the country, and have several acres, and I just relax on the weekends and after hours. I get away from it because you have to.
So how did you deal with? I know a lot of my frustration and a lot of my brothers and sisters here in Massachusetts that I talk with regularly. We always put up a custodial position against a teacher's position in the budget, and we lose every time. And that's on a small level. I can't imagine. I was at a district that had, I had 100 custodians and 23 school buildings, and I ran into that almost every budget, and I lost every time. It's how frustrating is that? Or did that happen in a district your size? How do you compare, or how do you not compare, but how do you pit one against the other?
And I got to say, when I was in the larger district, when I was in the larger district, there was a during the recession back um, in 2008 2009 time period. It was probably one of the most challenging times of my career. We had to lay off people. We had to cut budgets. I had to personally sit down with employees and share with them that at this time at that time in that district's uh, time period that we couldn't afford their employment. So um, there's been times that it's been really tough. Like you say, it's all about getting the kids educated and supporting the teachers. And a lot of times, those decisions are to cut auxiliary positions, custodians, maintenance, to ensure that we have teachers in the classrooms. Um, I gotta say that in my tenure here at Garland, I think one of the reasons why I came to a little smaller district, and one of the things I did a lot of research on the district that I was going to come work for. They were very financially stable, and I can brag on that. Garland has done a terrific job of being able to financially support not only the educational programs, but also the support staff that we have here. So I haven't really experienced a lot of cuts here. It was mostly when I was at the larger district, and just Paul, it was very frustrating at times because I would submit programs for a preventive maintenance program that was really needed for equipment that only made sense to maintain, and then I didn't have the staff to maintain it. And on the next bond program, I'm having to replace equipment because we didn't maintain it correctly.
Yeah.
So the frustration was there. I have to be honest.
I mean, I remember the 2008 timeframe. I had we riffed 12 out of the 100 custodians that we had, but that those are tough conversations. They had to sit down, tell them it's all union here, so it went by seniority. There was no evaluations involved. It's just last man in is the first one out, and it's so emotional. It was so draining. It was one of the most I'd rather carry shingles up on a roof and do roofing jobs like I used to do when I was a young kid. But you'd hear about mortgages that couldn't get paid, and their kids who were in school, and all that stuff. And then there's always in the back of your head, someone's going to react poorly to what's going on. And I had one of my guys come back, 6'4" big husky guy, and his Spanish accent. He come walking through the door, and I said, "This is it. This is my time." He was upset, and he put his hand out and shook my hand, and thanked me for the time that he worked there, and how he was treated by me, and said, "It's obvious that this isn't easy for you to do, and you're not doing it out of vengeance or being mean. But I just want to thank you for the time that I've had here." And then slowly over the years, I got to hire all of those people back. I brought them back a couple at a time, which is the good side of it. But it's just emotionally draining when you go through that.
Yes,
it
sure
was.
is.
I think it was. Well, I just had my 13-year anniversary of speaking. My first speaking on stage event was May 29, 2009. So I think it was 2009, 2010 that I was making the comment of how difficult. I made a blanket statement that I believe, and I still believe to this day, that hiring staff and education across the board is the hardest thing to do, because when times are good, you're highly competitive. You're not highly competitive pay-wise with private sector. And when times are bad, you're in a situation like you guys were in 2008, where you actually have to cut people and you're still understaffed.
Right.
You never really get to that proper staffing model to do the jobs that you need to do, because it's a hard task to get, retain, and keep staff. And that's a challenge. That's something that Paul and I talk about just about Paul Anastasia and I talk about every episode. Now I got to do last names again. I got to get another routine of this stuff. As I'm writing down some notes, Paul Gonzales, here, this is kind of I'm trying to think that we've had a couple of technicians that turned director of facilities. But they weren't in large institutions like yours. And I think people are people, but I think that there is definitely some different dynamic to it. What did you do? How much, because you mentioned you took some trainings and leadership trainings and things. How much and how long did it take for you to be comfortable to say, yes, I'm capable of being this leader? Or was it just like, all along, that's you felt it and you had that confidence? You've got a great confidence about you, but I'm guessing it was with a bit of hard work.
It was probably when I first got into K-12 as a coordinator manager, being responsible for that part of the district, and being able to communicate with the stakeholders, and also the principals and assistant principals on campus, and being able to share the issues and what was the plan of action to correct those issues. It wasn't too much longer after when I got into the K-12 arena, and kind of went through a lot of those major issues. I mean, in Dallas, it was dealing with on a daily basis. I mean, it was dealing with the media, dealing with the newspapers, dealing with. I mean, it was like it felt at times like you were a goldfish inside of a big bowl, and everybody was just looking at you, and everybody was wanting to see if you were going to make the right decision. And it was just being in those situations, and being able to go through those situations and feel good about the decisions that I was making, that really built up my confidence. And pretty much from there, I got promoted to director and then executive director. And, now I'm here at Garland, and a lot of people look towards me for answers, a lot of the administration. So it was just building that confidence going through my experiences.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember when I left, I started in facilities in my hometown here in Watertown, and it's a small district, 5 school buildings. I had 15 to 20 guys at any one time, and then I jumped over to Newton, which was 23 school buildings, 100 custodians. Then the maintenance came from the city side. It was overwhelming. It was not a word fit for it. But I remember early on. I mean, in Watertown, I was there 10 years. I had systems in place. I had it all under control, but I wanted more. I felt like I had to make that change. But I remember leaving my office, going into the men's room, sitting on the toilet with my pants up, holding my head, saying, "What did I do? What did I do?" Right? But like you say, never let them see you sweat. Right, Josh. And it's like
Yep.
I went in, I hid, and I held my head, and then took a couple of deep breaths and went back out and did the job and got the confidence I needed and worked out those systems. I had a phenomenal boss that I worked with. And, I remember going in his office one day saying, I'm not sure. I said, I'm leaving so much on the table. I'm leaving 30% on the table every night when I go out the door, and I'm working 9 hours a day, 10 hours a day. I'm working nights and sometimes weekends. He says, that's the way the system is designed. We're understaffed. We can't get it all done. He said, the way we're going to do it, he said, it's like juggling balls in the air. Every once in a while, one's going to hit the floor. When it hits the floor, we pick it up, we own it, and then we start juggling again. He says, and he was fairly new to the district as well. And so we built a team, we built a department together. And, shortly after that, we had systems in place and we're moving things along. But there was that time at the beginning was like, I'm not sure I made the right decision coming here. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's just the stress of knowing what needs to be done and not having the capacity and capability, the hands to do it.
Right.
When we look at schools and we talk, we have conversations, and you look at a school, I could look at a school that I've been talking to for 10, 15, 20, 25 years. And, they've struggled. It's not that they're not working hard. It's not that they're not doing the best that they can, but they're in such a situation of putting out fires that they're not prepared for and aren't aware of until they actually happen, that they can't do anything that's proactive. They can't, it's like having a truck that you just drive all the time and you can never stop to get into the shop. At some point, it's going to run out of oil. It's going to have problems. It's going to break. And if you don't take care of it, and it ends up costing you, an arm and a leg opposed to, a little bit less. So that to me would be the frustration factor. That's why I say, I don't know that I applaud anyone that's in your seats, Paul's, because that's got to be a frustration in itself, knowing and not being able to do something, right?
Yeah.
One of the biggest things, and Paul kind of touched on it a little bit, was you got to have processes and the processes to be able to measure what you can do with the amount of resources you have. It was early in my career that you just stated, you would work for a maintenance department and you were chasing fires and you could never get nothing accomplished, or you felt like you never got nothing accomplished. And then you turn back around and you said, man, we did a lot of work. We did do a lot of work. We did accomplish, but there was no way that we were showing what we were doing or being able to measure what we were doing. And it wasn't probably until, the technology in the 90s that we started, because I remember when they came and dumped a working station in the early 90s on my desk. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
well, what is this? And they said, well, this is for you to do your work now. You have to log on. You're going to have emails. And, back then it was the World Wide Web and then
Yep.
a CMMS program that I can't remember the name of it, but we had a CMMS program that it took an engineer to figure it out.
Yep.
But
I sold one of those for a while.
But it was really, really being able to utilize technology, the advancement of technology, and then putting in procedures and processes where I finally got to be able to be able to show and share what we were doing, because before then it was hard to get in front of the boss and justify something or show them what we had done, because you didn't have any data to present.
Yep.
And it was tough back in, those late 80s, early 90s. It wasn't probably until the 2000s when I really felt really good about what I was presenting in front of someone and sharing the information. So, but that was very, very, that really excelled my career. That's what really excelled my career, but not only my career, all of my team members that I brought, that I formed to support me. It really excelled their advancement too. And Josh, you know that, I've been in the industry for quite a bit. I got team members that are here in Garland that I met, over 20 years ago.
Yep.
And like I tell them, why are we going to recreate something or reinvent something if it's something that's working? There's processes and procedures still in place that I use that I've learned many years ago, or vice versa, stuff that I developed in the former district that they're still using to this day. So, why do you invent something or reinvent something if it doesn't need to be redone?
Right. Well, I think the greatest example for me is Exeter Public Schools in New Hampshire. They were a client of mine. When you talk about the complexity of the 90s software, bring a disk, put it in a computer, 7 months of training to be able to do something. It was just that was just where technology was. It wasn't like intentionally trying to make things difficult for you. But they had one workstation. It was in the director of facilities office. It was 1998, and they were just pulling their hair out of their head when I left. And when I came back in 2004, I went into that same space, and they had this open room that used to have mop buckets and all sorts of equipment and light bulbs and just kind of stuff everywhere. And instead, they had a bank of computers. They had 4 computers that every day the technicians would come in and they would log in, because they now had high-speed internet, and they were now putting in the process. The process and how it was done was no different. It was how they did it and how they streamlined it and moved forward. And now today, when you talk about that goldfish in the fishbowl, I tell people in all my talks, especially in the operations, but in education, showing the work is just as important as doing the work. If you can't show it, if people don't see the work you do, if you don't show it, then you didn't do it. And that's just a hard fact. And it's unfortunate. And for us as operations people, we just do our job. We do our job. We think about it. We know we do a good job. We realize that if the lights go on and off and the heat and air conditioning go on and off, and we're in a safe space and the roof doesn't leak, we've done a good job. But people don't look at that. The people that use our space don't necessarily look at it like that. And when something breaks, it's, what are they doing? They're not doing their job.
Right. And like you said, they don't see it. Think about our trades and what we do. I mean, most of our cleaning is done at night.
Yeah.
And no one's in the building, so no one sees it. And filters are changed in classrooms, and teachers will say, no one's ever changed my filter. That's why we've gone to putting a date on the filter, so we can open the box, pull out the filter, and show that it's been changed. Our boilers are done in the boiler room. No one sees who's going down in the boiler room to fix them. Our rooftop units are on the roof. No one knows there's anyone up on the roof working on them. So the majority of our work is done out of sight of the public. And I always said it's like, being the Wizard of Oz. You're behind the curtain and you're pushing all the buttons and sliding up the valve back and forth and paid no attention to that man behind the curtain. All of our stuff's being done behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Well, we'll do one even better. We were talking about, and I want to talk about the arena, but before we came on live, we were talking about after hours use of buildings. Those spaces aren't getting cleaned once a night. Sometimes they're getting cleaned 2 and 3 and 4 times a night. When you talk about a gymnasium or an auditorium with high use or some other piece, and it's tough to figure out how do we do that. And the most important thing is the space has to be clean and ready for and safe for the students, right? And that's the priority. And that's the level of work that gets done on a daily basis and a nightly basis is daunting when you look at it. And the finger pointers are normally the ones that might not have the cleanest homes. They've got the hardest time keeping their own home clean, yet alone we've got thousands of kids running around these hallowed halls every day, and you could eat off the floors of many of them.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So Paul had me down. Paul Gonzales had me down to provide a day of professional development for his staff. Where we had about 120 folks, leadership for his team. And I came down and we did a 5-hour intense. I flew down from Boston to Dallas in the morning, got a ride to Garland, spent 5 hours, 3 1 hour and 15 hour and 30 session with breaks and lunches. And first of all, in any of my time doing these talks, I always say, hey, if you have a fire, go take care of it. So I think we had about 15 fires where people had to get up and go take care of things. But I'm glad they did, because that takes precedence over what they might miss, and I could just slow down my talk a little bit. But when I go to schools, I have, when I get to talk at schools, I'm always I never know what I'm in for. So I'm at an event right now. It's a conference center. I have an idea of what the layout's going to be. Garland, I was not prepared. Garland is this space. It's not even in a school. You have this own independent space, standalone arena with breakout rooms. And I don't know how unique that is to Texas, but I think that's unique to just about anywhere in the country. So tell us a little bit about the space and what it's used for, and all the nuts and bolts to it, because I was just so amazed by it.
So the building that you're referring to is our Curtis Caldwell Center. I believe it was in the 2002 bond program. The voters voted on building a center, a event center that would be able to accommodate all of our graduations, that would be able to accommodate our ag show. Being in Texas, you got to have agriculture. That's a big part of the curriculum. So they voted on it. They passed it. We ended up building this beautiful event center, and it has, like you said, multiple of meeting spaces. The administration uses it once a month. We all get together. Superintendent brings together all of the leadership in the district, and just to bring information to us. We also utilize it for training. We use the facility for training, so we can do small breakout areas for training. There's a lecture hall. That's where we were at. Mr. Peach was really amazed the way that this room was set up, because it takes you back. If you ever taken any lecture in higher education, it's built just like a lecture hall is in a university, major university. So it's a pretty cool space. And then we also have the arena, where we have everything from circuses we've had in there, rodeos, live rock concerts, country bands. You name it, wrestling. And it's a really, really cool event center. But it also, we also use it as a profit, a way to bring some money back into our district. It's a very, very high tech facility. But it's a great opportunity for the district and the community to take part in all these events, and the district is part of it. So it's a really, really nice center.
So I got a whole bunch of questions about custodians cleaning up after elephants. But I'm gonna leave that to the side, because I'm just thinking about
I saw the smoke coming out of your head. I knew it was going to be something like that.
Thinking about my guys here and me telling them they got to go to the arena and clean up. But I'm assuming that your school staff does the cleanup in the arena, even though it's not attached to a school. It's a separate site.
The special event center, as I shared earlier before we got on the podcast, our Garland ISD custodians do our primary, right. And then our contract, we have a contractor that does secondary campuses to include the event center. So during those negotiations and the building of all the specifications of that contract, they get to see exactly what they're going to be bidding on. Like you said, major cleanup after these special events. Um, so if it's bringing in a whole bunch of soils and having to, I mean, it gets there's special things that need to happen. We have to clean filtration, the HVAC coils, because once you have all those different type of events, you got to really maintain all of those systems to include, getting rid of all the trash and refuse of those programs and events. So.
And you talked about graduations in there. How many students do you graduate in an arena like that?
Well, that arena there could hold up to 8,000 people.
Wow.
So we even have some small colleges here in the area that utilize that arena. So it's widely used. It was a shame that we had to kind of close things down during the COVID time, but we're starting to ramp up again. This year we've got everything back on schedule, and we'll be graduating our high schools are graduating seniors this year, and we'll be graduating other seniors from other districts and college seniors. And like I said, it's an awesome facility.
Is this? Did you not have the graduation last year? Is this your first graduation in person back, or did you have it?
We did have a graduation, but it was as you know, you couldn't bring too many people into an arena area, so it was not the same. We did have our ceremonies there, but it wasn't like it was pre-COVID. But this year, we're going to have a great graduation there.
When's that's coming up? Is that this?
That's this coming week. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
This coming week.
So you guys graduate the same time that we do in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Yeah. My town's graduation is this Sunday, with same day my grandmother turns 100. So,
God
yeah.
bless.
Awesome.
Yeah. And what was crazy was my graduation was on my birthday. That was my claim to fame. That's why I tell people I took an extra year. That's why I did 5 years, because
You were watching the calendar, right?
Graduation wasn't in line with my birthday, so I wanted to double down on the gift giving.
Yeah, there you go.
So
in an event area like that, I mean, you're renting it out for profit, and that money comes back into the school department, into your coffers there. And is it used in the regular budget? Is that building kept up with that money? Because I know here, at the district I worked in, we would bring in over $300,000 a year in rental, but the majority of that money went into the central fund and was used for anything in the city.
The majority, the budget is majority goes back to the general fund. But one of the things that, like I said, having a facility of this type, you got to continuously put money into this event center. Carpet needs to be replaced after so many years. It's got to be painted through the in and out. I mean, it's just constant maintenance. So I would say it's a pretty good split share between going back into the general fund, but also maintaining the facility. That facility, it has to stay maintained. If not, you're not gonna have people that are going to want to come rent the event center if the carpet's all nasty and dirty and the walls are not being maintained and so forth. So I would say it's a pretty good share for maintaining the facility too.
Good.
How many school districts do you think have a space like that in Texas?
I've heard of two. I believe there's one in Allen. And I think there's another one here in North Texas, but I believe there's only 3 districts. But I believe ours is probably the largest.
No, it's Paul Anastasia. You got to put that on the list to visit, because it is.
Places to go, yeah.
It's definitely it's impressive, and the work that they do to keep it pristine. I mean, there wasn't a piece of trash. I walked the parking lot, and there wasn't a piece of trash in the parking lot. I mean, that's one thing. Paul, I know Paul Gonzales, I know you do, and Paul Anastasia, I know you did, which is you really instill with your team, the mindset of you're never going to ask them to do something you're not willing to do yourself, and that in turn, as a matter of fact, I'm drawing a blank on the gentleman's name, the young man that he was painting the parking lot lines. What's his name?
The gentleman that drove you to
drove me back to the airport. Yeah,
that was Shaquille.
Shaq. Yeah, Shaq. Shaq actually picked something. He was walking along and saw something on the ground, picked it up, and threw it out on the way out to the parking lot. And it's like you don't see that everywhere. As much as that might be a part of the job, you know, if they're not a custodian, oh, that's not my job. But I think that was instilled with the team mindset, because he's a young guy. He's only been there a short amount of time. And I was just really impressed by that. I didn't make mention of it, and I bet he probably didn't even notice that he did it.
Yeah, he didn't realize. He was just doing what comes natural.
He just did what was natural, which is we want our space to look welcoming and perfect and not out of place, and let's help one another out with it. So, yeah, please say hi to Shaq for me. We had a great ride back. Great young man.
Yes, he's a future. He's the future of this district. He's really good technician and learning a lot, and wants to move into leadership. And that's what we want. We want to continue building our team, because right now I'm going to tell you, facilities managers, executive directors, even supervisors. It's hard to replace people. I have in the last 5 years, I've lost assistant directors. I've lost due to retirement, managers, supervisors, and all that knowledge that leaves when someone, you know, that impactful into an organization leaves, and then you have to replace that person.
Yep.
It's tough. Right now, it's really tough to fill positions in our area. It's just tough. You can't find them.
That's absolutely amazing to hear you say that, because now, for those that don't know, Josh and I do this, and it's mainly unscripted. We call it a hot mic. We ask questions. We don't prepare for it.
Nope.
And that has been a message that has come from anyone that we've talked to in the facilities industry. Mm-hmm. That, like myself, I'm 4 years retired from the district I was in. And it's a failed retirement. I've got more work right now consulting, because there are so many communities that need help. There were so many of us that aged out at the same time, and we just don't have a feeder program. And until Josh and I started doing this and talking to people around the country, I thought it was a Massachusetts problem. But I think it's a nationwide problem, that there are not a lot of tradespeople coming up. There's not people coming into the facilities world, and we're struggling here just to fill those positions. I worked for 4 communities in the past 4 years that I did interviews for facilities director. I was the interim, and I think I've interviewed the same 4 guys in each community. Yeah, you know, it's absolutely amazing.
It is, and you basically you're not the pipeline that feeds into our industry is not there, and that's something that we've been working really close with a lot of the younger technicians to try to get them educated in the trades, working with them, growing our own within our department. It's tough right now. It's really tough in the industry.
Yeah, it's amazing that we're all going through the same thing at the same time.
Well, I'll tell you what I loved, and I don't know. I'm learning more as you know, more schools are interested in having me go and talk to them and to their team for motivation, inspiration, customer service, leadership, and a number of different things. So I'm getting more requests and more involved in it. But I got to tell you, the day that I was there, I mean, all those rooms were filled with different departments of groups. And what was really amazing, and they all had their own different professional development that they were going through. But what was really impressive, and what kind of knocked me off my feet, was that your CFO came in and sat down, very unassuming, just sat there, and I ended up talking about money and something else, and then everybody kind of looked at him like, "Oh, by the way, that's our CFO." But that says a lot. Like, that says a lot about the leadership at the top wanting to build up the leadership below, you know, if you want to put it in the kind of the pipeline of things, and you just don't see enough of that. I think that's something that really needs to be looked at is, we need to not only just bring these people up, but we also need to bring them up and help them understand what their career path is, or what they want it to be, right? We often assume that a custodian wants to be a custodian forever, or we'll assume the custodian is entering today and is going to be the director of facilities 30 years from now, because that's what happened with the last person.
Yeah.
There's not enough conversation to say, hey, Paul, you're here today, kind of like what got you here.
Wow.
Your UT conversation with your boss. Hey, where do you want to see yourself in 5, 10, 15 years? And then how do we get you there? Because there's a lot of tools to provide. I mean, we're in education. You don't think we can find the courses that you need to learn and to grow and to do better and be better? That's the struggle. Is I think we leave a lot of people out there to try to figure it out on their own. And I think that's where probably some folks get burnt out, or they don't feel like they're cared about or appreciated, and then they find other places to go.
Yeah.
This great resignation is a learning lesson. 70% of the people that resigned in 2021 regret their decision for resigning and leaving and going somewhere else. 40% are actively looking. What does that mean? 30% are going to work every day miserable, making that work environment toxic. We got to fix the flaw here. Not an overnight fix either. So, not to change subjects, but you shared something with me that I think is pretty powerful, and I wanted to just hear a little bit about it. But this past weekend, you went to Uvalde for the memorial service, and you went to the community. You mind sharing a little bit about that, and
Sure.
just what people in this industry right now are everywhere are battling with what happened there.
Yeah. So this past weekend, it was my anniversary, me and my wife's anniversary. We went to San Antonio. That's where I'm originally from. My wife's originally from. So we went and spent some time in San Antonio, and we were watching, the devastation and everything on the news. We heard that they were going to have a memorial. So Saturday afternoon, we took a ride down to Uvalde and went and paid our respects. And we went by the campus. One of the things that you see on the news, you see the campus, you see the barricades, you see the police officers, a lot of police officers, different agencies there. You couldn't get too close, and if you wanted to leave some flowers there on site, it took several hours for you to drop off flowers there on the site. But they also had another memorial location at their main square in the city. But just looking at the campus, the Robb Elementary, looks like a typical rural elementary school that you see throughout Texas. A metal building with some masonry facade on it. There was an old part of the building, which was the original structure. Probably looked from the 56, probably the 60s era. And then you had several additions that looked like maybe early 2000s, mid 2000s. There was an addition, and I believe that's the area that the assailant went in through the back of the building. But it was a very moving, very emotional. There was a lot of families there. There was a lot of people from Texas. I noticed that I spoke to 2 or 3 people there that were from different parts of Texas. I think even one was from Arizona, New Mexico. They just come to give their respects. So it was just, when I left from there, it was like, it was very moving to me and my wife. One of the things that I see coming out of not only Uvalde, but all the different districts and schools that have had mass shootings like this. We always talk about how we need to harden our buildings and how we need to, do things to make things a little tougher for people that want to do bad things. That's something that at some point the funding is going to need to be available to districts, in my opinion. The local taxpayer can't pay for, a district, a good sized district. That's lots and lots of funding that's needed to harden buildings. If you want to do, harden the glass, harden the doors, change the hardware, just to ensure, do door control switches, some type of monitoring, cameras, all that kind of stuff. The local tax is not going to be able to cover all those type of items. There has to be a push for state and federal governments to be able to fund more of these items, and that's kind of my take
Right.
on it.
Right. Well, and it's everybody wants to do everything, right? We need to do everything with these spaces, and I don't know enough to agree or disagree, but I know that more needs to be done, because obviously these tragedies are happening more often. One time is too many. But yeah, that's one of the challenges that I think all schools are facing right now with that. I can't imagine how the emotion that was. So, but thank you for going there, and you could have done just about anything on your anniversary, but seeing that and going and paying your respects is it's pretty powerful stuff. No, this has been great. Jim Heron, I apologize. You put 2 comments up, and I read them, and I was going to pull them back up and read them, and I don't know if you took them down or if I did something on my end. I don't think I did, but from what I saw, it was he was having some of the same struggles that we talked about in implementing a system. That you can implement a system with, I think it was around technology, but if you don't have the staff that are going to actually use it and put the work in, then it doesn't do you any good. And you're absolutely right. I think that any implementation of a new service or solution or process requires that training and understanding, especially when it comes to showing your work with longer service tenured employees, because that old saying of Big Brother, you guys are just trying to play Big Brother on me. So, but we agree and appreciate you being on here. And David Young saying thank you. This brings back old memories. And Scott Carpenter saying thanks, Josh, Paul, and great conversation. So I think I got to all the comments. I just I don't know what happened here. The comments aren't seeming to go through. Are they showing up on your screens at all?
No.
Oh,
No, I
okay.
didn't see anything here.
Well, pop up and disappear. Good thing I took some notes. Well, this was great, Paul. I appreciate you giving us some of your time. We're coming up on an hour. I know your time's pretty valuable, coming towards the end of the day here. So I don't think we missed anything. I think we covered just about every base.
Can't forget your shout out now.
No, I won't forget the shout out. But Paul Gonzales, thank you very much, my friend, for making some time for us, especially during this commencement week, and teaching us a little bit about what it's like to have a school district, basically working at a school district the size of Alaska's students, and then what you're doing in Garland, and all the awesome that you're doing there with your team. And I can't wait to come and see you guys again here in the future. So I appreciate you, my friend.
Well, I appreciate you and really enjoyed the conversation today, Paul. Really enjoyed getting a different perspective from someone from another facilities director or executive, retired or not. We talk a lot of the same lingo.
Yeah.
Next time Josh comes down here, you make sure that he invites you to come down here and visit us here in Texas.
Oh, I've become his new travel partner. Trust me.
He is. He does. He's my go-to when I call and I say, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow night? You want to go to Ohio? You want to go to New Hampshire? You want to go to New Jersey?" So, yeah, he will definitely. He'll definitely be joining me on the next one. So, I pay him in frequent flyer miles and T-shirts.
So it works for me.
And hugs. So, so the shout out for the week, you're gonna love this one, because I'm sure you guys have seen this story, but if you haven't, it's an 11-year fresh story, 11-hour fresh story, and the tagline is Paul Gonzales. For every episode, we do a shout out for something amazing, awesome that facility, custodial operations person, team, district does. So I find stories online because I think a lot of us are on an island and we need to hear more stories and share more stories. So this is a doozy, Paul's. This one is janitor corrals mountain lion in empty California classroom. Do you guys hear about this?
Not in my job description, my guy.
No.
Yeah. Pescadero, California, quick-thinking custodian safely confined a curious mountain lion in an empty classroom after it entered a Northern California high school Wednesday morning, authorities said. The custodian was opening the Pescadero High School for the school day when the juvenile mountain lion was spotted, said Detective Javier Acosta with the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office. No students or teachers were on campus at the time, Acosta said. The mountain lion casually walked through campus and decided to go into an English classroom. The custodian acted quickly and managed to shut the door behind it. Acosta said the animal, estimated to be about 40 pounds, appeared lost and scared. The California Department of Wildlife, Fish and Wildlife tranquilized the cat and sent it to the Oakland Zoo for examination. The underweight male was estimated to be 4 to 6 months old and had a fractured tooth that will need to be extracted before the cat can be released back into the wild. Pescadero is a small coastal community about 35 miles south of San Francisco. So, Mr. Acosta, job well done. I don't know if I'm confronted with a mountain lion, I'm going to try to lock him into an English classroom. That is pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, take the rest of the week off.
Yeah. I mean, you get freaked out. People get freaked out when they see like a little snake or a mouse. You got a mountain lion. Forget about it. Oh my God. I saw that story this morning when I was getting ready to head out, and I got a chuckle out of it, and I was like, perfect timing. So that's the story for the week. And I think this will do it for this episode. Paul Anastasi, we'll get to work on next week's. I think we've got a couple of guests lining up for the next few weeks that are going to be interesting. And Paul Gonzales, thanks again. This was awesome. To all of you that sit in on this, watch this, send comments, share, tell your friends, do the ratings and reviews. We can't thank you enough. We're growing. We're in the top 10% of podcasts in under 3.5 months, 4 months of doing this. And we're doing it differently. We're doing it live and unscripted. So it's an uncharted territory. So appreciate you giving us your feedback. As always, if it's negative feedback, Paul at Be Awesome, Paul at Be Awesome. You might not know which Paul you get to. I got enough Paul guests coming on here. I mean, they might just all come up and collectively work together. And if you want to say something great, Josh at Be Awesome, or copy us both on either, and we will address it and look into it. But this has been another awesome episode. And remember, if you can be anything, be awesome. Have a great day.